The anime begins by showing a young man named Tatsumi trying to save a group of people in a horse carriage when they are being attacked by a giant dragon. He seems to have quite a great fighting ability because he can easily defeat the dragon with just one slash of his sword. The two men who boarded the horse carriage then got off and thanked him for saving them. Tatsumi informs that he is going to the capital in hopes of raising money for his impoverished village. Seeing his innocence, the two men advised him to be careful of the humans in the capital, who had even more cruel personalities than the monsters that Tatsumi had just defeated. Not long after, Tatsumi finally arrived in the capital and immediately enlisted as a mercenary. With his abilities as a swordsman, he could actually enlist as a royal soldier. However, because he was arrogant, he didn't even get any work and was expelled. Shortly afterwards, Tatsumi meets a woman who says she will help him get the job he wants. However, she asked him to treat her to a bar first, and he agreed. She said he should at least have acquaintances or a lot of money if he wanted to register as a royal soldier. Hearing this, Tatsumi took out a bag of money while boasting that he got the money from his hard work catching monsters on the way to the capital. After that, she took his money and told him that with that much money, Tatsumi would immediately become a commander. However, the innocent Tatsumi did not realize that he had been tricked by the woman until a bar waiter told him he had been tricked. Because he had no money, Tatsumi was forced to sleep on the side of the road, but he was soon invited by a rich girl named Arya to stay at her mansion. Arya and her family treat Tatsumi very well, and they ask him to tell her the reason for going to the capital. Knowing his desire to become a royal soldier, Arya's father warned him that their kingdom was surrounded by 3 kingdoms whose military strength could not be underestimated, and he might be stationed in the border area, which must be ready to fight in case of conflict. Upon learning that, Tatsumi, who was very confident with his fighting skills, said that he had prepared himself to face a fight anytime and anywhere. After that, he said he went to the capital with his 2 friends, Sayo and Iyasu. However, they were attacked by a group of robbers on the way, so they were separated. Tatsumi was not too worried about his 2 friends because they were good at fighting. However, Iyasu was terrible at determining direction, so he worried they might get lost. Seeing his determination, Arya's father told Tatsumi that he would ask for help from one of his acquaintances in the military to recruit Tatsumi to become a royal soldier. In fact, Arya's father will also help him find his 2 friends. The next day, when Tatsumi was dropping off Arya, who was shopping, he got into a serious conversation with one of her bodyguards, who told him that the emperor was actually a boy who didn't understand anything about his kingdom. Furthermore, the bodyguard said that it was the Prime Minister, Honest, who is a corrupt and tyrannical politician whose only agenda is to maintain his position of power. Hearing this, Tatsumi felt angry after knowing that the Prime Minister was the mastermind behind the suffering experienced by all the residents in his village. After that, the bodyguard told Tatsumi about Night Raid, a group of assassins who were wanted by the kingdom. Night Raid always targets the rich people in the capital and always acts at night. That night, Night Raid appeared at Arya's mansion, instantly killing her parents and the guards who tried to fight them. Tatsumi, who woke up from his sleep, rushed after her, fleeing to a warehouse with her bodyguards. But then, one of the Night Raid members, a girl named Akame, arrives there and prepares to attack Arya. Surprisingly, Akame didn't care about Tatsumi because he wasn't her target. She is also reluctant to slaughter the bodyguards, but because they attack her, she has no choice but to kill them. When Akame was about to kill Arya, Tatsumi rushed forward to protect her. Akame says she wouldn't hesitate to kill him if he tried to stop her from killing Arya. Even though he realized that Akame had abilities that might be greater than himself, Tatsumi still drew his sword, preparing to fight against her. Soon afterwards, Tatsumi and Akame engaged in a fierce battle until she managed to corner him. When Akame was about to kill him, suddenly, a woman who was also a member of Night Raid appeared. Her name was Leone, and she saved him because she turned out to be the person who deceived Tatsumi and took all his money when they were on a bar. Afterwards, Leone tells Tatsumi about the truth behind Arya's family, where they usually target immigrants from the village who are usually still as innocent as him. Arya and her family would invite the newcomers to stay in their homes and treat them very well at first. But after that, they would be tortured to death. Not long after, Tatsumi finds one of his friends, Sayo, in a lifeless state after being a victim of the cruelty of Arya's family. Arya argued that she didn't know about the torture at all. However, Tatsumi's friend, Iyasu, is also locked up there and tells him that Arya is the one who killed Sayo. Ultimately, Arya shows her true nature, who likes to torture people from the countryside. She boasts that she comes from a rich family, so she's free to do whatever she wants. Hearing that, Akame immediately prepares to kill her, but she is blocked by Tatsumi, who then draws his sword and kills Arya by slicing her in the stomach. After that, Tatsumi rushed to free Iyasu. However, Akame informs that Iyasu has been poisoned by Arya's mother and cannot be saved. Iyasu smiles when he sees Tatsumi kill Arya, and in his dying moments, he tells Tatsumi of how Sayo resisted until the very end. After killing Arya and her family, Akame and Leone prepare to return to their secret base. But then, Leone drags Tatsumi to come with them and decides that starting tonight, he will be a part of the night raid, and the other members don't seem to mind that. Arriving at the night raid headquarters, Leone then introduced the other night raid members to Tatsumi, most of whom were women. Even their leader is a woman named Agenda, an Imperial Army general. Despite the night raid members agreeing to accept Tatsumi from joining them, Agenda gave him a choice to accept or reject the offer. He then reveals that his purpose in coming to the capital was to become a royal soldier, but he becomes doubtful after learning how dilapidated and corrupt the government is. One of the night raid members, a man named Bulat, tries to convince Tatsumi to join them, as night raid's goal is to help the Revolutionary Army's efforts to overthrow the corrupt prime minister and restore peace and order to the empire. Upon hearing that, Tatsumi eventually accepts to join the night raid and slowly begins to accept his new life, while still grieving over the loss of his friend. Agenda then asked Akame to train and guide him. Turned out, instead of guide him, she often asked him to do housework. One day, Leone tells about two men named Gamal and Ogre, who will be their next assassination target. Gamal is an oil trader who bribes, and Ogre, an imperial police officer, to make his business going well. She said that killing Gamal was easy enough, but that wasn't the case with Ogre, who was always surrounded by many of his men and had pretty great fighting skills. Even so, Leone had done her previous investigation and found Ogre had a habit of drinking in the center of the city. Because some night raid members are wanted, the posters have been scattered in the center of the city. Because of that, Leone volunteered to carry out an assassination mission this time because she was not on the police wanted list, so she could still roam freely. On the other hand, Tatsumi told Leone and the others that he also wanted to carry out the mission. But Akame doubts he can kill other people because before, he killed Arya. After all, Tatsumi was very angry when he discovered that Arya had tortured and killed his friends. However, Tatsumi asserted that he was able to kill Gamal and Ogre, especially after hearing the reason that their client was suffering from their actions. Upon hearing that, Akame said that she would only admit Tatsumi as a member of Night Raid if he succeeded in committing murder this time. Akame also reminded Tatsumi not to be arrogant because pride only leads to death. Leone then told Akame's past, who had been trained to become a professional assassin by the Imperial Army since she was a kid. In the past, Akame was sent to kill Agenda. However, after learning how dilapidated and corrupt the government in their current kingdom is, Akame decides to join the Revolutionary Army to fight the Prime Minister. Long story short, they finally carried out the assassination mission, where Akame and Leone could easily kill Gamal. Meanwhile, Tatsumi turns out to be assigned to kill the Ogre alone. At first, he had a hard time facing Ogre because his physical strength was quite formidable. Fortunately, in the end, Tatsumi managed to kill him and then reported his success to Agenda and the others. While Tatsumi was boasting about his great ability to kill people, Akame suddenly took off his clothes to ensure that he wasn't hurt. She did that because there was once a new member of Night Raid who didn't realize that he was poisoned after completing his first mission. She felt very relieved when he found out that Tatsumi was fine. The next day, Tatsumi and the Night Raid members seemed to be running inside after learning that a group of people had managed to infiltrate their secret base area. Bulat, who became a team with him, asked him to be careful because Tatsumi had never fought in groups. He then showed his true power to Tatsumi, where with that power, he defeated several people at once. The other Night Raid members look very serious in the fight against the intruders. Even Lubbock, who has a reputation as a playboy, shows his seriousness when fighting against his enemy, who is a beautiful woman. Ultimately, Tatsumi and the remaining Night Raid members manage to kill all the intruders. A few days later, Agenda pairs Tatsumi with one of the Night Raid members, a girl named Mine, to go to the capital. Mine, who is not included on the wanted list of the royal police, can roam freely in the capital and even spends her time shopping. At the same time, Tatsumi noticed that the residents there look gloomy and frustrated. Mine tells that only the rich can live in prosperity, while the poor are always oppressed and treated arbitrarily. Not only that, but if they put up a fight against the Prime Minister and his henchmen, they would be publicly executed. Meanwhile, at the palace, the Emperor, who was still very young, sentenced a minister to death for treason. The Emperor imposed the sentence at the instigation of the Prime Minister because he was an official who was very concerned about the welfare of the people, and opposed all the policies of the Prime Minister and his henchmen, who were hungry for power and only wanted to enrich themselves. Night Raid then gets a mission to kill an official who is one of the henchmen of the Prime Minister. Mine, who is a sniper, can easily kill her target, even when the target is in a crowd of people. On the other hand, when the royal guards try to locate the killer's whereabouts, they are intercepted by Leone and other night raid members assigned by Najenda to kill the guards. After the fight, Leone said that the official had 5 bodyguards, whereas they killed only 4. This indicates that one bodyguard is still alive and may be looking for Mine and Tatsumi's whereabouts. Meanwhile, Tatsumi and Mine walked through the forest to the meeting location with the night raid members. She said she suffered harsh discrimination and racism for her half-foreign blood during her childhood. That's why she ran away with joining the Revolutionary Army, hoping there would be more accepting of different races when the army won. In the middle of their conversation, suddenly, the bodyguard appeared and immediately attacked them. Tatsumi was also involved in a fierce battle with the bodyguard, while Mine tried to shoot the bodyguard without hurting him. Realizing this, Tatsumi held the bodyguard's body so that Mine could focus more and easily fire shots in the right direction. She finally managed to shoot the bodyguard, killing him. Unfortunately, the bullet almost hit Tatsumi's head, so he was angry at Mine. Even so, she thanks him for saving her and finally acknowledges Tatsumi as a member of Night Raid. Leone and the rest of the Night Raid members finally arrive there, relieved that Mine and Tatsumi could get to know each other better. The scene then shows a mysterious man looking at the poster of Akame, which is plastered on one of the bulletin boards in the capital. 2 royal police officers approached him and asked him about his identity because he looked suspicious. However, the mysterious man just slaughtered the 2 policemen while speaking lightly about the massacre he would carry out in the capital. Not only the royal police, the mysterious man even massacred the townspeople who accidentally passed him. The next day, Najenda met a soldier from the Revolutionary Army who appeared to be dying. The man gave a list of the names of people who were quite influential in the capital and who were not part of the Prime Minister's accomplice. After that, Najenda returned to the base and ordered Night Raid to kill a butcher who roamed the city and slaughtered many people indiscriminately. Mine thinks that the butcher must be Zonk, who used to work for the Imperial Army as one of the executioners tasked with executing prisoners. Because so many people had been executed by him, Zonk was so mad that he couldn't stop his craze for beheading other people. After the Prime Minister formed a special team to execute those who opposed him, the Imperial Army no longer needed Zonk, so he was now roaming freely and began to carry out reckless massacres. Not only that, but he had also stolen one of the Imperial arms, so it would be quite difficult to deal with him. The Imperial Arms was created on the instruction of the first emperor, who feared that the empire he had founded would eventually fall. To prevent this, he gathered many materials and hired scientists worldwide to make strong weapons and defenses. The creation of the Imperial Arms is the result of their efforts. There were 48 Imperial Arms in all, but almost half of them were lost during a civil war about 5 centuries ago. Several Imperial Arms have been seen to be destroyed. Many Imperial Arms were created from the remains of danger beasts that had unique powers, imbuing them with special abilities. Many weapons and armor-type Imperial Arms were forged from a rare metal called orichalcum. The Imperial Arms are not limited to one ability. Some are known to have secret powers that are yet to be discovered, and some have powers that are lost to history. Since each member of Night Raid is known to have the Imperial Arms to help them in the fight, Tatsumi asks if he will get the Imperial Arms. However, Najenda couldn't be sure of that because the Imperial Arms weren't easy weapons to get and were also used by anyone. That same night, Night Raid went on a mission to kill Zonk by dividing its members into several teams and splitting up to find his whereabouts. However, unbeknownst to them, Zonk has been watching them from a distance and is targeting Tatsumi because he doesn't have the Imperial Arms. Tatsumi, who was paired with Akame on this mission, accidentally saw the figure of his late friend, Sayo, in a deserted alley, so he immediately chased her. However, when Tatsumi hugs Sayo, she suddenly transforms into Zonk, who reveals that he can read Tatsumi's mind with a support-type Imperial Arm in her head. Tatsumi was involved in a fierce battle with Zonk, but he could easily overtake Tatsumi because he could predict all of Tatsumi's attacks with that weapon. At first, Tatsumi seemed overwhelmed as all of his attacks were known, and he could not counterattack. However, with his mental strength, he could finally injure Zonk, even if only by scratching his face. At the same time, Akame arrives and praises him for fighting Zonk quite well. Zonk, who finally met Akame, asked if she had always heard the screams of the people he had killed. Apparently, Zonk had lost his mind because he always heard the voices of the people he had killed in his head, which tormented him. The duel between the 2 most sadistic assassins was fierce enough, so he decided to use his Imperial Arm to defeat her. Zonk then creates an illusion about a girl named Kurome, who becomes the person Akame loves the most. He thought Akame would be caught off guard by seeing Kurome's figure. However, she attacked Kurome's figure, who was none other than Zonk, and said that she loved Kurome, so she wanted to kill her immediately. After that, Akame decapitated Zonk with her imperial arm, the Murasame sword, and ended his suffering. After completing the mission, Tatsumi then asked Akame about Kurome. However, she said nothing and promised to tell him about Kurome one day. Sometime later, Najenda asked Seilei to physically train Tatsumi by swimming while wearing a suit of armor. In the middle of practice, Seilei tells him she's an airhead, often losing her glasses or failing at any chores she tries to do due to clumsiness. He became curious about her past, so she told Tatsumi about her past. Growing up in the low districts of the capital, Seilei's clumsy nature caused many people throughout her life to often consider her useless, isolating her from nearly everyone. At one point in her past, Seilei had a friend who didn't mind her personality. One day, she was attacked by her ex-boyfriend. Seilei killed the ex-boyfriend to protect her, revealing her strange talent for killing. However, in the end, this broke their friendship. Soon after, a gang related to her ex-boyfriend Seilei had killed earlier sought revenge against her and had already murdered her parents. Because of that, she coolly killed the group and was later scouted by the Revolutionary Army, who had learned of her ability. By joining, she wanted to use her talent in a way that would make her useful to others by helping fix society. Turning to the present, after completing his training with Seilei, Tatsumi is asked to meet Najenda, who apparently wants to give Zonk's imperial arm to him. Tatsumi seemed happy to finally have one of the imperial arms. However, he soon became exhausted while using the weapon. Najenda said that the weapon was not suitable for him to use. Since he can't use it, she plans to send the imperial arm to the Revolutionary Army for further investigation. Besides eliminating enemies, Night Raid was also tasked with gathering the Imperial arms to strengthen the revolutionary forces against the Imperial Army under the orders of the Prime Minister. Tatsumi then asked about the strongest of the Imperial arms. Najenda says that Imperial arms' actual power depends on the user's strength. However, if she can choose, she wants a weapon that can control ice. Shortly afterwards, Najenda tells about a charismatic man named Numa Seika, the leader of the northern tribes. Because Seika opposes the Prime Minister and his henchmen, they also send a woman named Esdeath to kill him and destroy the northern tribes. As a user of the Imperial arms, Esdeath can completely freeze anything in an instant and can summon and manipulate ice, even without a nearby water source. Not only that, but Esdeath was also rendered completely immune to harm from any temperature. She can easily defeat Seika and his troops, even make him her pet and command her army to destroy the northern tribes. Meanwhile, there was an uproar in the palace as two generals chose to defect and join the Revolutionary Army. Even so, the Prime Minister didn't seem to think too much about it because he was more concerned about Night Raid's actions that had killed his minions. Because of that, the Prime Minister ordered Esdeath to return to the capital as soon as possible. On the other hand, Leone took Tatsumi for a walk in the market, where she was quite famous among the merchants there. But then, a group of people came after Leone to collect the debt from her, so Tatsumi became separated from her. While looking for Leone, Tatsumi accidentally meets a girl named Seiryu, who is part of the Imperial Police. Seiryu has the Imperial arm in the form of a dog which she names Koro. Soon afterwards, Seiryu escorted Tatsumi to where he and Leone first came and then said goodbye to him. Seiryu was on a mission to capture the Night Raid members because they had killed her commander, Ogre, whom she had considered her mentor. Turned out, Seiryu didn't seem to know that Tatsumi had killed the Ogre. Not long after, Tatsumi and Leone were seen in a district known as a nightlife center. They were assigned to kill a nightclub manager who often ordered female workers to take drugs and did not hesitate to kill those addicted to drugs. She really hates people who always exploit women for personal gain. Because of that, the female killer immediately took action to kill them all. After completing the mission, Tatsumi then wonders about the fate of female workers who are already addicted to drugs. Leone said she has an acquaintance, a doctor who often helps the poor, so she might ask the doctor to help them. The scene then switches and shows Seilei and Mine rushing to where they will carry out the mission. However, they are confronted by Seiryu, who suddenly attacks them after discovering that they are Night Raid members. Soon afterwards, Mine attacked Seiryu with her Imperial arm. However, Koro then changes his body size into a giant to protect Seiryu. Seiryu tells Koro to attack Seilei, but she can easily slash him. Even so, Koro does not die and can regenerate quickly. Seeing this, Mine told that Koro's real body must be hidden in it, and they must destroy it so that he can't regenerate again. Soon after that, Koro launched a barrage of attacks towards Seilei and Mine. Due to the urgency, Mine increased the strength of her weapon until she was finally able to repulse Koro, even if only for a moment. Seilei then took the opportunity to attack Seiryu, who immediately became overwhelmed when facing her imperial arm. Seiryu, whose arms had been slashed by Seilei, ordered Koro to release his true power, where he then turned into a very terrible monster. Seeing that, Mine became desperate and was almost killed by him if only Seilei didn't come on time to save her. However, this was all planned by Seiryu because someone shot Seilei from behind, and Koro pounced on her body. When Mine was about to save Seilei, suddenly the Imperial police appeared, preparing to arrest them. In the end, Seilei was dying and distracted everyone's attention with a dazzling light that shot out from her weapon. Seilei did this so that Mine could escape from there and stay alive to warn the rest of the Night Raid members. After Mine managed to escape, Seilei finally breathed her last. The Night Raid members looked so shocked and devastated by Seilei's death. Tatsumi then asked Mine about the identity of the person who had killed Seilei, but Najenda warned them not to act rashly because it would only get them all killed. On the other hand, Esdeath finally arrived at the capital and immediately rushed to the palace to face the Emperor and the Prime Minister. He ordered Esdeath to eradicate Night Raid, which had killed many of his henchmen. He even promised to grant her request if she managed to destroy Night Raid. However, Esdeath did not ask for gifts because she wanted to fall in love. Hearing her request, which was quite unique, the Emperor also promised to find a husband who matched the criteria desired by her. After that, Esdeath ordered her strongest subordinates, tree beasts, to kill honest officials who defended the people's interest and slandered Night Raid for the murder. On the other hand, Najenda, who already knew that the slander was a trap to lure the Night Raid members out of hiding, then divided the Night Raid members into two teams to protect the people's defense officials because their safety was far more important. At the same time, Leone will be in charge of spying on Esdeath. Tatsumi, paired with Bulat on this mission, seems impressed by his imperial arm, demon armor and Curcio, which can make Bulat invisible. He tells Tatsumi about his past, where he used to be a soldier of the Empire. He later betrayed the Empire when his superior, General Liver, was framed for not giving in to the Prime Minister's agenda. Bulat became disgusted with the Empire that cared more for bribes than merit, regardless of how hard he worked. After leaving the Empire, he joined the Revolutionary Army and eventually its subsidiary, Night Raid. Meanwhile, Leone, who was spying on Esdeath, intended to attack her because she was alone. However, Leone finally chose to follow her intuition, which said it was all a trap. She finally rushed away from there. On the other hand, it turns out that Esdeath already knows that Leone is spying on her, so she purposely lets herself unaccompanied to trap Leone. Unfortunately, the plan failed because Leone chose to follow her instincts. Elsewhere, Tatsumi and Bulat, who is on a mission on a sailing ship, are surprised by the appearance of one of Esdeath's subordinates named Daidara, who then attacks Tatsumi with his imperial arm. He was able to easily beat Tatsumi until finally Bulat arrived there and said that he was the one who would defeat Daidara. When Bulat activated his imperial arm, suddenly, two other Esdeath's men appeared and immediately attacked him. However, he managed to repulse the two and then killed Daidara. The battle didn't stop there because one of Esdeath's men apparently was the General Liver that Bulat had previously told Tatsumi. In fact, Liver used to be a good general who fought and achieved much for his country and was upright, as he didn't give in to the bribes of the Prime Minister. However, after Esdeath offered him an opportunity to work under her, Liver became immensely loyal to her and followed her orders, no matter what, even if it cost him his life. After becoming one of her subordinates, Liver earns his imperial arm, given to him by Esdeath. Bulat was also involved in a fierce battle against his former superior, while Tatsumi faced one of Esdeath's men named Niao, who fought without the imperial arm, just like himself. Even so, Niao has a greater fighting ability than Tatsumi, so Tatsumi is finally defeated by him. On the other hand, Bulat and Liver both put their best in the fight until each of them was badly injured and could no longer use their imperial arms. Seeing Bulat's ability to develop rapidly, Liver offered to join Bulat to become Esdeath's subordinate. But he refused the offer and proudly said he was a hero for the people's defense. Shortly after, Bulat and Liver engage in close combat that only relies on physical strength. However, the two of them used to be formidable warriors, so the duel was very fierce. Liver then injects poison into his body, making his blood contain poison, and then uses the blood sword technique to defeat Bulat. In the end, Bulat manages to defeat Liver and kill him, but in the process, he is poisoned fatally. However, the battle did not stop there because Bulat and Tatsumi still had to deal with Niao, who had the imperial arm named Scream. Niao said that he would use the triumph card of Scream to increase his muscle mass and strength by releasing a melody from the imperial arm. Seeing this, Bulat then gave his demon armor and Curcio to Tatsumi and asked him to use it because Bulat had run out of strength to fight. At first, he refused Bulat's gift because he felt unworthy to use the weapon, but Bulat convinced him that he would be able to use Incurcio. At Bulat's request, Tatsumi uses Incurcio, and surprisingly, Incurcio can evolve and adapt to his power. Bulat, who saw this, became dumbfounded, realizing that Tatsumi had surpassed him using Incursio. With the Imperial Arm, Tatsumi's fighting ability increased dramatically, and he could easily defeat Niall. Seeing that, Bulat looked very proud of Tatsumi because he had managed to adjust to Incursio and even surpassed his strength. He finally breathed his last with a smile etched on his face. Tatsumi seemed devastated by Bulat's death, which he considered his older brother. Tatsumi also promised to become stronger and use Incursio to the best of his ability. Elsewhere, a girl named Kurome is seen sitting relaxed after massacring a village with her comrades. One of her comrades approached her and told her that she was asked to return to the capital immediately because they were planning to create an elite team to do important work. A young man named Wave is seen entering a room after receiving an invitation from the palace. In the room, he meets a strange man named Balls, who wears a scary mask. Wave looked so awkward because they were alone in the room until finally, Kurome and Seryu, who also received the same invitation. Besides them, there is also a young man named Run and a man who calls himself Dr. Stylish. After that, Esdith, who will serve as their leader, arrives in the capital and immediately tests her new subordinates' fighting abilities. She seems satisfied with their abilities and then tells them that from now on, they will join an elite team called the Jaegers, where she will act as captain and Run as the strategist and second in command. The appearance of the Jaegers as an elite team that curbs the criminal activity in the capital at the behest of the Emperor caught the attention of Knight Raid, especially since they were led by Esdith, who turned out to be Najenda's partner when she was still in the Imperial Army. Esdith was not an opponent to be underestimated. If her subordinates are known to be very cruel, then she can certainly have a much more violent and cruel personality. Even she often commits murder just for the sake of pleasure. On the other hand, Lubbock informs Tatsumi that Esdith will hold a martial arts tournament with large prize money. He suggests that Tatsumi enter the tournament and win it to send money to his family in the village. The next day, Tatsumi participated in the tournament and faced an opponent of large stature. Tatsumi, who had now become much tougher, could easily defeat the big man. However, unexpectedly, Esdith, who saw his fight, fell in love with him and took him away with her. Lubbock and Leone, who saw this, looked so dumbfounded and couldn't do anything to help Tatsumi because they didn't want their disguises to be exposed. They also rushed to report what had just happened to Akame, who was currently acting as the leader. Besides that, Najenda had to go to the revolutionary troops in the border region to hand over the imperial arms they had managed to gather. Akame immediately devised a plan to move their secret base and save Tatsumi, who is now held captive at the Jaegers' headquarters. On the other hand, Tatsumi, who was invited by Esdith to monitor the members of the Jaegers who were massacring a group of bandits, looked surprised when he saw Seryu, a member of the Jaegers. Tatsumi wanted to avenge Seilei's death on Seryu, but he couldn't act rashly by revealing his true identity as a member of Knight Raid. After that, he meets Kurome, who is very similar to Akame. Soon afterwards, Tatsumi asked about their relationship, and Kurome revealed that Akame was her sister. However, because Akame had betrayed the Empire, Kurome became very ambitious to kill her. Esdith then informs them that they will be hunting beasts in Fake Mountain. She actually just wanted to show her power in front of Tatsumi. The following day, Esdith assigns Tatsumi and Wave to the west part of the mountains, tasking them to take out a group of tree beasts. Fortunately, they manage to defeat the tree beasts, and when Wave is caught off guard, Tatsumi uses Incursio to escape into a forest. However, Wave immediately noticed it and instead attacked Tatsumi for knowing that the Incursio's user was a member of Knight Raid, even though he did not realize that Tatsumi was the one who used Incursio. Wave then uses his Imperial Arms, Grand Chariot, to attack Tatsumi. Even though Wave was a member of the Jaegers, who were enemies of Knight Raid, Tatsumi refused to fight him and dodged his attacks. After Tatsumi manages to swiftly run away from Wave, he encounters a beast. Fortunately, Akame arrives and kills the beast, while Lubbock takes Tatsumi and Akame back into the mountains. At the palace, Esdith punishes Wave for allowing Tatsumi to escape, yet she is still determined to get him back. Elsewhere, Dr. Stylish, who had suspected Tatsumi from the start, was secretly tracking his tracks and managed to find the secret headquarters of Knight Raid. With the help of Team Stylish, a group of modified humans, which is the result of his experiments, Dr. Stylish then launched an attack on the secret headquarters of Knight Raid. Tatsumi, Lubbock, and Akame are also involved in a fierce battle with Team Stylish, whose fighting abilities cannot be underestimated because they have been modified in such a way by Dr. Stylish so that it becomes much tougher than before. As the scientist, Dr. Stylish had performed experiments on countless individuals, most of whom were former criminals who received a lighter sentence in exchange for participating. He gave them special abilities that allowed them to do tasks no ordinary human could. Tatsumi looks overwhelmed by one of the Team Stylish members named Kaku, who uses Seilei's Imperial Arm. But then, Mine arrived there still wearing her night dress and then fired shots at Kaku, killing him. After that, she took Seilei's weapon and then cried because she remembered her beloved friend. At the same time, Akame and Lubbock beat the other Team Stylish members. However, the battle didn't end there because the number of Team Stylish members was far more than Night Raid had expected. During the fight, Najenda, who had just returned from her trip, arrived there riding Manta Water, a species of Manta Ray-like beast. Seeing this, Dr. Stylish spreads poison, paralyzing all Night Raid members except Tatsumi because he uses armor. Najenda, who saw that her comrades had been dropped, ordered a new Night Raid member named Susanoo to help Tatsumi face Team Stylish. Susanoo has a great fighting ability and can easily defeat Team Stylish, but Dr. Stylish then detonates his minions and causes great damage to Susanoo's body. However, after miraculously healing, Susanoo is revealed to be a humanoid Imperial arm. Realizing that poison will not work on Susanoo, Dr. Stylish attempted to escape but was intercepted. Left with no choice, Stylish resorted to his second trump card, injecting himself with a serum that changed him into a huge danger beast while also absorbing the last of his own troops to further increase his power. Susanoo immediately became overwhelmed with Dr. Stylish, whose strength increased. Akame, who has not fully recovered, asks Tatsumi to carry her so she can help defeat Dr. Stylish. On the other hand, Mine also helps them by performing an attack from above the Manta water, which can make Dr. Stylish fall. Tatsumi and Akame also took the opportunity to slash him and finally managed to beat him. After the attack incident, Najenda then took the Night Raid members to a highland area which would be the location of their new headquarters. Besides that, she also introduced two new members of Night Raid, namely Susanoo, the Imperial arm in human form, and a girl named Chelsea, who has the Imperial arm named Gaia Foundation that allows her to change her appearance at will. While Chelsea's Imperial arm is a support type, Najenda stated that Chelsea had gotten as many jobs and assassinations as Akame, suggesting that she was quite skilled in combat or assassination. Meanwhile, at the Jaeger's headquarters, Esdeath concludes that Dr. Stylish had been killed by Night Raid because he had just disappeared. Upon learning that, Seiryu became very angry and even angrier with Night Raid for killing the two most valuable men in her life, namely Ogre, her mentor, and Dr. Stylish. Sometime later, the Night Raid members began training to increase their respective strengths because the enemy they were about to face would be far more terrifying than before. Tatsumi and Leone are seen training together by battling monsters, where Leone becomes impressed by his ability to match his powers with Incursio, just as Bulat did. While Leone is more focused on increasing her physical strength as much as possible because she does not want to use her Imperial arm. Elsewhere, a herd of monsters carried out an attack on some of the villagers. The incident quickly spread to the palace, where the Prime Minister ordered Esdeath and the Jaegers to destroy the swarm of monsters. However, he asked Esdeath to bring some monsters alive for further investigation. She immediately gathered the members of the Jaegers to plan and carry out the mission. Not long after, the Jaegers arrived just as the herd of monsters was about to attack several people riding in the horse carriage. All swiftly rescued the people in the carriage, while Esdeath used her Imperial arm to freeze several monsters alive and handed them over to the Prime Minister. After completing the mission, Balls told Wave and the others that he was not a good person and once burned a village because all its inhabitants had contracted a deadly infectious disease. Balls has also executed convicts on death row by burning them, and he did all that by order of the kingdom. Wave said Balls was only doing his job and not merely enjoying hurting or killing other people. Balls is very grateful that Wave sees him as a good person and that other people think that way about him besides his wife and daughter. On the other hand, Night Raid also reported continuing monster attacks, even though the Jaegers and the Imperial Army had intervened. Agenda predicts that the number of monsters will increase so that the Jaegers and the Imperial Army are so overwhelmed that they must act immediately for the safety of everyone. Chelsea seemed to question this because, according to her, eradicating monsters was not Night Raid's job. But Tatsumi then emphasized that Night Raid's job was to protect the residents from all threats, including attacks by monsters. Chelsea actually said that because she worries about her comrades' safety. At the same time, Run meets Esdeath and tells her about the research results on monsters that were once humans. Run assumed the monsters resulted from Dr. Stylish because they appeared after he disappeared. Run estimated that the monsters might have escaped from Dr. Stylish lab. However, Esdeath concluded that the monsters were not the result of Dr. Stylish but rather someone else who purposely let go of the swarm of monsters for some reason. Esdeath's assumption seems to be starting to come true because when Seiryu and Koro are fighting against a pack of monsters, someone seems to be watching their fight from a distance. Afterwards, on a mission with Lubbock, Tatsumi questioned his past, who turned out to be like Najenda. Lubbock actually comes from a wealthy family. However, after seeing her for the first time, he immediately fell in love with her and decided to join the Imperial Army so that he could always be by her side. When Najenda chooses to defect and join the Revolutionary Army, Lubbock follows the woman he loves. Even when she formed Night Raid, he remained by her side. During their conversation, Tatsumi began noticing that the mountainous area they were exploring looked suspicious. Because of that, he took the initiative to check the top of the mountain to monitor the overall situation. However, how surprised he was when he accidentally met Esdeath, also on patrol around there. Not long after, a swarm of monsters suddenly appeared and immediately attacked them. Tatsumi was about to take the opportunity to escape, but Esdeath could easily overthrow the monsters with just one hit. Not wanting his identity as a member of Night Raid to be discovered by Esdeath, Tatsumi reasoned that he was testing his abilities by fighting against monsters. Meanwhile, Lubbock, still waiting for Tatsumi downstairs, was surprised by the appearance of a man who turned out to be the mastermind behind the monsters' attacks. However, the mysterious man instead heads to the top of the mountain, where he is then confronted by Esdeath and Tatsumi. The mysterious man uses his imperial arm to instantly create a portal that can move them to another place. Tatsumi, now on a tropical island with Esdeath, thinks he is trapped in an illusory world created by the mysterious man. However, she denied it because everything looked real, like the two giant monsters that suddenly attacked them. In the fight against the monsters, Tatsumi finally finds out how terrible the power possessed by Esdeath is because she manages to defeat them without any effort. After exploring the island, Esdeath finally realized that the island was connected by a portal created by the mysterious man. They had to wait for the portal to open again and they could return to the capital. While waiting, Tatsumi asked about Esdeath's past, hoping to get important information that he could report to Night Raid. So that she would not suspect, Tatsumi also told about his past as an ordinary young man who came from the countryside and went to the capital to find a job with a sizable income. Surprisingly, Esdeath unhesitatingly told him about her past. Esdeath told him she was from the Partas clan in the northern frontier lands. She said that she was very close with her father, the clan chief, due to her mother's death at the hand of a superclass danger beast. She was a skilled and formidable fighter even at such a young age. Her father told her that in the north, the strong live and the weak die, a creed she kept close to her heart. One day, Esdeath returned from an outing to find her tribe destroyed, with everyone either dead or dying. Her father was mortally wounded and soon passed away in her arms. From that day on, she vowed to herself to become stronger. Later, Esdeath joined the Empire's military, rising through the ranks rapidly. At some point, the Prime Minister allowed her to choose the Imperial arms. She noticed the demon's extract that was chained off from the others. Esdeath felt that it was calling for her and chose it. Instead of drinking one glass, which would have been enough, she drank the whole thing. Turning to the present, Esdeath also plans to subdue a danger beast to bring them back to the capital. Not long after, a spell passed over them, so Esdeath rushed after it. At the same time, the portal suddenly opened, and Tatsumi rushed into the portal to escape from her. After successfully returning to his original place, Tatsumi used his armor and activated invisible mode to hide from Esdeath. On the other hand, Esdeath, who thought that Tatsumi was sent to another place, finally decided to leave that place immediately and felt sure that she would meet him again. Meanwhile, Tatsumi, who saw her departure, said they would meet as enemies at the next meeting and fight each other. The scene then shows Najenda telling about a religious organization called Path of Peace, which will start a rebellion against the Empire. Najenda said the rebellion would open up opportunities for them and the revolutionary forces to attack. The Imperial army would be caught off guard, so they could simultaneously launch attacks from 3 sides. After that, Night Raid will be tasked with killing the Prime Minister during chaos in the capital. However, before the attack, they must first kill a man named Bulat. Bulat is a spy working for the Prime Minister, posing as a high-ranking individual of the Path of Peace. His goal is to kill the leader of the Path of Peace without revealing his true identity and take his place so that the Empire can manipulate the religious organization for its own purposes. Furthermore, Najenda said that the Jaegers had now been appointed as the personal bodyguards of the Prime Minister, which would complicate their mission to assassinate him. She then insists that they must be able to lure the Jaegers away from the Prime Minister to make it easier for the revolutionary forces to kill him. Upon learning that, Tatsumi seems indecisive because he doesn't want to kill Wave, who he thinks is a good person. However, for the success of their mission to kill the Prime Minister, who was the mastermind behind all the suffering of the common people, Tatsumi also made up his mind to kill all members of the Jaegers. At the same time, knowing that Night Raid will carry out their mission to carry out a rebellion and kill the Prime Minister, Esdeath then orders the Jaegers to prepare to fight them. She then divided the members of the Jaegers into 2 groups because Najenda had devised a ploy to trick them. Wave, Balls, and Kurome are part of a team Esdeath assigned to the eastern region because they received information that Najenda and some Night Raid members went there. On the way, they were stopped by a large straw doll blocking their way. Meanwhile, Mine is prepared with her Imperial arm, named Pumpkin, at the top of the cliff to kill the 3 of them. She plans to kill Kurome so that Akame doesn't have to feel guilty for killing her younger sister. However, Kurome was able to dodge Mine's shot, and at the same time, Susano appeared from inside the straw doll and immediately attacked them. Surprisingly, Najenda and the rest of the Night Raid members were there to kill the three of them. Even Akame had prepared to fight her younger sister. When she finally faced her sister, Kurome did not hesitate to exert her power by using her imperial arm, Yatsufusa, a long katana with the power to reanimate and control corpses. Kurome and her comrades, who were previously outnumbered, can now match the power of Night Raid after she awakens the corpses of the strongest warriors who are very reliable on the battlefield. On the other hand, Night Raid began to be overwhelmed by Kurome and her corpses. Even Leone lost one of her arms, and Najenda had to intervene to help her comrades in the fight, even though she was unable to maximize her power after suffering severe injuries in her fight against Esdeath in the past. When Leone helped Akame fight against Balls, Tatsumi and the others seemed to have difficulty defeating the corpses that Kurome had resurrected. But then, Chelsea arrives and helps Tatsumi and Mine defeat them. Seeing her corpse dolls one by one being defeated by the Night Raid members, Kurome then summoned a frog monster which then swallowed Mine alive. She said that whoever was swallowed by the frog monster, then their body would be destroyed for sure. Hearing that, Tatsumi prepared to fight Kurome and Najenda and Susano, who had succeeded in defeating their enemy. At the same time, Akame and Leone cooperated solidly enough that they were able to defeat Balls. Unexpectedly, Balls activated the weapon on his back, creating a very powerful explosion. Balls and Kurome then took the opportunity to escape because it was impossible for them to defeat the Night Raid, who had managed to turn things around. Balls, who was about to return to the Jaeger's headquarters, accidentally bumped into a little girl who was crying because her leg was injured. Balls, who was really kind, then treated her wound and did not realize that the little girl was actually Chelsea in disguise. Soon after that, she kills Balls. After killing Balls, Chelsea intends to kill Kurome. Upon hearing that, Lubbock warned her not to act rashly and obeyed Najenda to return to base. However, she insisted on carrying out her plan and asked Lubbock to call their comrades for reinforcements. After Lubbock left, Chelsea used her imperial arm to disguise herself as Balls and went looking for Kurome's whereabouts. Meanwhile, Kurome, who was resting somewhere, was reminded of the past when she and her sister were gathered together with other children to be trained as professional assassins. They were then left to survive alone in a forest filled with monsters and beasts. Of the 100 children collected, only 7, including Kurome and Akame, survived. After that, Akame and Kurome were separated to train in different places. Kurome, the weakest of the 7 children who had survived, was injected with a special liquid that could strengthen her body. Turning to the present, when the Night Raid members were resting in a cabin in the middle of the woods, Lubbock arrived breathlessly and told them about Chelsea's plans. Meanwhile, Chelsea, disguised as Balls, finally met Kurome, and she did not feel suspicious of Balls at all because Chelsea had learned the speaking style of the members of the Jaegers from Tatsumi who had met them. She then waited for the right opportunity to kill Kurome because, according to Akame, Kurome always took drugs that made her behavior difficult to predict, so they would have a hard time reading her attacks. However, after fighting Kurome, Mine concludes that she is not only affected by drugs but also other things that even Akame doesn't know about. Because of that, Najenda sent Akame and Tatsumi to help Chelsea. At the same time, Kurome, who felt pain due to the effects of the medicine she was taking, collapsed because she could not bear the pain. Chelsea immediately took advantage of the opportunity to stick a needle into her neck. Presuming that Kurome was dead, Chelsea returned to her true form and prepared to leave. However, unexpectedly, Kurome turns out to be still alive, and that's because of the new drug that was injected into her. She then told Chelsea that she could only die if she was stabbed directly in the heart or cut off her head. Realizing she couldn't fight Kurome alone, Chelsea rushed to run away, especially after Kurome destroyed her imperial arm. Kurome then resurrects her corpse dolls and orders them to kill Chelsea. Because Chelsea did not have weapons that were strong enough to fight them, she was finally killed in a gruesome way. Elsewhere, Tatsumi and Akame finally find Chelsea's whereabouts, despite being a corpse. Even though the Night Raid members are shocked and devastated by Chelsea's death, they still have to continue their plan to kill Bulat. Meanwhile, the Jaegers have apparently been ordered by the Prime Minister to escort Bulat, even though he says that he already has personal bodyguards dubbed the 4 Rakshasa demons. Bulat even boasted by asking Esdeath and the Jaegers to rest because his bodyguards would defeat Night Raid. On the other hand, Wave realized that Kurome was injured quite badly from the attack from Chelsea earlier, so he asked her to just rest. However, Kurome insisted on continuing the mission because, according to the rules, members of the Jaegers who could not fight would be killed so as not to spread information. Meanwhile, along with the Night Raid members looking for information to infiltrate the Bulat residence, the Rakshasa demons have also begun to spy on the Night Raid members, even openly confronting them, as experienced by Akame. That night, Akame is visited by one of the Rakshasa demons, Ibara, who used to be her partner while still in the Imperial Army. Akame was also involved in a fierce battle with him, who had terrible physical strength, which was difficult for even her Murasame sword to touch. On the other hand, Lubbock can counterbalance the strength of two Rakshasa demons named Stan and Mez at once by using his Imperial arm, Crosstail, which can be used in various ways to attack, defend against, or immobilize opponents. After a fierce battle, Akame and Lubbock finally managed to defeat their enemy. Unfortunately, Esdeath already knew about the defeat of 3 members of the Rakshasa demons because she asked Run to spy on them. Hearing this, Seiryu became even more excited to kill all the Night Raid members and began to explore the city to find their whereabouts. Soon afterwards, Seiryu managed to find Mine, who was with Tatsumi at that time. Seeing Tatsumi with one of the Night Raid members, Seiryu finally finds out the true identity of the young man who is so loved by Esdeath. Without thinking, Seiryu immediately launched an attack on them. However, Tatsumi acted quickly by using his Imperial arm and taking Mine away. During their escape attempt, they are confronted by the only remaining member of the Rakshasa demons, Suzuka, so he can't help but have to fight against her. Meanwhile, another fierce battle took place between Mine and Seiryu. At the same time, Night Raid has acted to kill Bulat. In the end, Mine managed to destroy Koro and defeat Seiryu. Unfortunately, she activated a time bomb whose detonation would be able to reach Mine, who was unable to escape as soon as possible due to her severe injury. But then, Tatsumi, who had managed to defeat his opponent, arrived just in time to save Mine. Elsewhere, Najenda tells Esdeath that Akame and Lubbock have killed Bulat. At the same time, the Prime Minister looked restless at the palace because the revolutionary troops had started rebellions throughout the country and succeeded in controlling several areas. Even so, a commander-in-chief named Budao didn't seem too worried about it, saying that he would protect the capital. Knowing that the revolutionary army would soon enter the capital, the Prime Minister announced that he had formed an elite team that would protect the capital, where the leader of the elite team was a man named Shura, who was the son of the Prime Minister. Shura turns out to be the mastermind behind the appearance of swarms of monsters and the one who has sent Esdeath and Tatsumi to a tropical island through a portal. Shura assured that he and his team would protect the capital and asked Budao not to worry. But Budao didn't seem to have much faith in Shura's abilities and just walked away. Elsewhere, the Night Raid members, who had been divided into several teams, began to carry out their respective duties. Tatsumi and Lubbock are assigned to infiltrate the palace and join the resistance forces already at the palace to spy on the Prime Minister and his henchmen. After that, they encountered a woman who was part of the resistance, who immediately took them to where the resistance forces were gathering. However, they were shocked when they discovered that the resistance forces had been massacred. It didn't stop there. Suddenly an explosion occurred and almost killed Tatsumi and the others if they didn't dodge immediately. The mastermind behind the massacre and explosion was none other than Shura. Tatsumi finally finds out that he is the mastermind behind the monster's attacks and is furious when he finds out that Shura is doing it just for fun. When Tatsumi was preparing to fight Shura, Budao suddenly appeared and immediately attacked Tatsumi with his thunder, so they were then involved in a fight. On the other hand, Lubbock is about to help Tatsumi but is blocked by Shura, who has the Imperial arm named Shambhala, who can manipulate space, allowing him to teleport people and objects over large distances. Shura turns out to have marked all the places in the palace, making it easier for him to move from place to place, making it difficult for Lubbock to counter his attacks. Even so, Lubbock did not just give up and devised the right strategy to fight Shura. To his liking, having a customizable crosstail proved quite useful for Lubbock, as he only needed to spread the crosstail around him to prevent Shura's attack and trap him. However, when Lubbock almost succeeded in killing Shura, the woman who brought them to the palace turned out to have sided with Shura because her parents were being held hostage by him. The woman then stabbed Lubbock while pleading for her parents to be released. Upon hearing that, Shura laughed and said he had killed her parents long ago and then just killed the woman. Lubbock, furious at this, immediately paralyzed his attack with crosstail. But Shira fought by opening a portal, which then moved them to another place. Suddenly, Lubbock launched the final attack by stabbing Shira's heart with a spear, killing him. After Shira's death, the portal suddenly disappears, and Lubbock notices he is sliding down from a height. Knowing that he will soon die, Lubbock remembers all the good memories with the Night Raid members. He considers his own family and leaves everything to Tatsumi, hoping he can survive. After that, Lubbock fell on the tip of a sharp spear and died right away. On the other hand, Tatsumi was defeated by Bulat and then imprisoned. The Prime Minister, who is still mourning the death of his son, intends to kill Tatsumi to avenge his son's death. However, Esdeath emphasized that she would handle this matter. They then spread the news about Tatsumi, who will be executed soon, to all corners of the capital, and the Night Raid members were very surprised to hear that. While Najenda and the Night Raid members devise a plan to free Tatsumi, Esdeath encounters him in a holding cell, trying to persuade him to join the Imperial Army. However, Tatsumi refused the offer and confirmed that he would still side with Night Raid and the Revolutionary Army. Upon knowing that she can't convince Tatsumi to join her, Esdeath says she will kill him by herself because she won't let anyone else kill him. Long story short, the day of Tatsumi's execution arrived under the direct leadership of the Emperor. When Esdeath was about to kill him, Mine, already at the designated position, fired a shot at Esdeath. However, Esdeath was able to dodge the shot. At the same time, Najenda arrived with Leone and Susano and exploded around the arena. Bulat, who saw that didn't stay still, immediately launched an attack on them. Shortly afterwards, Mine and Leone team up to take on Bulat, while Najenda and Susano fight against Esdeath. Even though they had worked together, they were extremely overwhelmed against Esdeath and Bulat because they both possessed extremely terrifying strength and were hailed as the most formidable generals in the kingdom. Bulat can easily take down Mine, Leone, and Esdeath, who forces Najenda and Susano to unite their powers. When Bulat prepared to issue his strongest attack, Mine also put all her strength into fighting the commander, until finally, she could win the battle after successfully breaking his attack. On the other hand, when everyone was involved in a fierce battle, Akame managed to free Tatsumi, so he immediately helped Mine, who collapsed due to exhaustion. Knowing that Tatsumi has been released, Najenda then orders Night Raid to withdraw. However, Susano said he would withstand Esdeath's attacks as best he could, so they could all escape from that place. Susano turned out to have prepared to sacrifice his life for the Night Raid members, who he considered his own family. Esdeath seems a little impressed by his sacrifice and tells him she will remember him as a soldier, not a weapon. Susano put all his strength into fighting Esdeath while the rest of the Night Raid members fled. When it reached a safe place, Mine, whose body was still very weak, expressed her love for Tatsumi. Suddenly, Mine breathed her last because her life couldn't be saved after her fight against Bulat. The struggle of Night Raid and the Revolutionary Army against a tyrannical and cruel government, in fact, has inspired the residents to carry out a similar struggle. Rebellions began to occur throughout the capital. However, Esdeath quelled the rebellion by massacring the rebels and hanging their bodies from the stake as a warning to the rest of the population. On the other hand, Wave and Run seem to be discussing the rebellion. Run then reveals that he is siding with the Revolutionary Army, which wants to overthrow the current government and form a new government that can bring peace and prosperity to all residents. Meanwhile, Akame realized that Kurome was sending messages through the corpses to do a one-on-one duel. Knowing this, Tatsumi tried to stop Akame because he was worried about her safety, but she was determined to fight her sister and rushed to the abandoned church ruins in the middle of the forest. Before starting the fight, Akame and Kurome then talked while reminiscing about their past when they were still on the same side. When they finally fought each other, they were suddenly surprised by the appearance of a giant robotic danger beast, so the two of them worked together to defeat the giant monster. By combining their strengths, they managed to destroy the monster. When Akame and Kurome continued the fight, Wave suddenly appeared to help Kurome. Because the fight became unbalanced, Akame became desperate. But then, Tatsumi appears and tells Wave not to interfere with the fight between them because that fight is very important to them. After Tatsumi explained everything, Wave finally understood and allowed the two sisters to fight each other and settle their affairs. In the end, the fight is won by Akame, who's finally having closure with her little sister. After Wave takes Kurome's body away from there, Akame mourns her sister's death by crying in Tatsumi's arms. Elsewhere, Prime Minister Honest instructs the Emperor to activate the ultimate Imperial Arms to stop the revolution. Tatsumi, Akame, Leone, and Najenda start their final mission to assassinate the Prime Minister. As they break into the palace, they are confronted by Run, who uses his Imperial Arms Mastema, a pair of plates on his back that grows wings double as weapons. Leone stays behind to deal with Run while Tatsumi and Akame reach the throne room. Under the Prime Minister's influence, the Emperor activates his Imperial Arm, Shikautaser, a giant 500-foot-tall robot, and causes destruction in the capital. Tatsumi tries to convince the Emperor to have compassion for the citizens, but the Emperor becomes selfish in his cause to maintain power. Wave joins him in the battle against the Emperor. After Tatsumi manages to strike the core of Shikautaser, he unlocks the true power of Incursio to defeat the Emperor. Soon afterwards, Tatsumi, using his last ounce of strength to stop Shikautaser from tumbling towards the citizen, dies in the arms of Akame soon after. With Tatsumi now dead, Esdeath challenges Akame to a duel. Akame is forced to unleash her trump card by poisoning herself, thereby increasing her physical abilities. Eventually, Akame wounds Esdeath's left arm, and she cuts it off to prevent the poison from spreading through her body. Before Akame initiates the final strike, Esdeath uses her trump card to freeze time, but this does not stop Akame from dealing a fatal blow to her. With her last effort, Esdeath encases herself in Tatsumi and ice, which shatters them both into pieces. Meanwhile, Leone corners Prime Minister Honest before he tries to escape the palace. Unfortunately, he uses his Imperial Arms, Erase Stone, a crown that can break other Imperial Arms, to destroy Leone's Imperial Arm. Luckily, Leone manages to kill Prime Minister Honest, even when he shoots at her repeatedly with his gun. She bids farewell to Akame and later dies in an alleyway. Not long after, Najenda sentences the Emperor to death for corrupting the Empire, while Wave and Run pay respects to Kurome's grave. Najenda takes responsibility for helping rebuild and restores the capital, while Akame parts ways with Najenda and leaves to parts unknown. This is the end of this anime. The moral that can be learned from this anime is, peace demands the most heroic labor, and the most difficult sacrifice demands greater heroism than war. It demands greater fidelity to the truth and a much more perfect purity of conscience. People who put themselves on the line and sacrifice their own safety for the greater good and for others, anyone in any profession whose concern is the welfare of other people instead of the individual, is inspiring and important.